Shield eyes.
History is about to unfold. The date is July 12th, 1995. The place? Universal Studios, Florida. More specifically, Soundstage 21, also known as the Extreme Arena, home of the mid-90s Nickelodeon game show, GUTS. GUTS styled itself as an action sports competition, which is pretty much just another way of saying it's a game show centered around sports. In each episode, 3 kid athletes would compete against each other in a variety of events in order to answer that age-old question.
Do you have it? Do you have it?
However, one of the show's events towers above all the others. Which brings us back here. What you're looking at here is pretty extraordinary. These kids are currently experiencing a pressure cooker of anticipation, stress, and excitement. They've already come a long way to get here, but nothing could possibly prepare them for what lies ahead, because the ultimate kids game show event still awaits them. For these 3 and the many other contestants who competed on Nickelodeon GUTS, the Aggro Crag looms large.
Our super Aggro Crag. That thunderous mountain getting ready to give our players a whole lot of surprises. You know where they're going? The Crag! That's got it decided!
The Aggro Crag was the show's main event, the final round that almost always determined the podium placements. Think Olmec's temple from Legends of the Hidden Temple, but vertical, and faster, and just way more extreme. It's kind of like a Goofy movie versus an extremely Goofy movie type deal. They're both goofy, but one's extreme. Over the course of the show's 4 seasons, the Aggro Crag took on 3 different incarnations. Yet, across all 3 versions of the Aggro Crag, the goal remained the same: make it to the peak as fast as possible while also hitting each checkpoint button, or actuators as they were known on the show, along the way. Failure to successfully hit each actuator or crossing into another player's designated portion of the crag resulted in a disqualification for which the disqualified player was awarded last place points. First, there was the original Aggro Crag. Standing at 28 feet tall, Season 1's classic crag put players to the test with hazards like falling foam rocks, glitter explosions, strobe lights, water cannons, a whole lot of fog, and, of course, Nickelodeon slime. Then, in Season 3, shit got real with the introduction of the Mega Crag. That's no disrespect to the original crag, of course. It's just, look at it. It's the Mega Crag. The Mega Crag was the first to feature this much more menacing, metallic look that I'm betting most people associate with the Aggro Crag. It kept most of the obstacles and hazards from the original crag, but also upped the ante with 2 new challenges. The first of which was known as
The Shard Zone.
You're traveling through another dimension.
Imagine, if you will, a most unusual web. A tangled mass of metallic shards meant to disorient and confuse children between the ages of 12 and 15. A physical inflection point, midway between journey's beginning and end. One that will almost always determine the fate of those who cross through it. For on the other side awaits a form of ecstasy that is so seldom found in the course of a lifetime, but only for those who emerge unscathed through the Shard Zone. On the far side of the Shard Zone was the undisputed final boss of the Mega Crag,
Stone Ledge.
Stone Ledge is where we found out who actually had guts. It was a vertical climbing wall that served as the crag's great equalizer.
It's the great equalizer.
This addition made for a much more exciting event as it placed a serious obstacle at the very end of the course and thus gave trailing players a real chance to make up for lost time. In a similar vein to the Shrine of the Silver Monkey, Stone Ledge could make or break a player's run. And then, for the show's 4th season, dubbed Global GUTS, production went into X Games mode.
Oh my god.
And introduced the Super Aggro Crag. The Super Aggro Crag combined the best elements of the original and Mega Crags, while also adding some key alterations that locked in its reputation as the definitive GUTS challenge. As a whole, the Super Aggro Crag stepped it up a level by pretty much just adding more of everything. The hazards started flying from the second the players began their ascent, and would virtually never let up, which effectively led to double the disorientation. According to the Aggro Crag lore, yes, it has lore, the Shard Zone exploded between seasons 3 and 4, 4, which caused it to take on a whole new altered appearance as well as a new name.
Avalanche ledge with ultra-sharp spires and rumbling rocks ready to roll.
To go along with that, Stone Ledge had supposedly frozen over and was now known as
The ice wall straight through the falling sheet of snow, protecting the crag peak.
The ice wall.
It was the same vertical climbing wall from Season 3, except now it was intentionally made to be slippery as a way to further emphasize its role as the crag's final challenge. It might sound like I'm going a little over the top in this description of the various crags, and maybe I am, but my response to that would be,
how can you not be romantic about
The Aggro Crag.
it certainly is an icon, an emblem that could almost represent this whole subgenre of television. And beyond that, by its very nature, the crag inherently represents the primal challenge of reaching the highest possible heights, the same challenge that humankind has pursued for hundreds of years. As the voice of a generation once said, it's the climb. Conquering a mountain is in itself a story, and it's with this in mind that I bring you these anecdotes from the Radical Rock. In other words, sit back and enjoy these tales from the Aggro Crag. Alright, boom, right off the bat here we've got the biggest blowout in crag history. We're not messing around this time, just getting straight into the heavy hitters. We're looking at Season 2, Episode 15, which means this slaughter took place on the original Aggro Crag. But which one of these three was it that completely waxed the other two? Well, based on performances at the other events, there was no obvious frontrunner come crag time. If there was an underdog, well, then it would have to be PJ the Piranha Owens.
PJ the Piranha Owens!
He had a strong start as he was one of two players that took home max points in the first event, which was called Rebound. Honestly, Rebound is pretty whack, so I'm not going to waste your time with a play-by-play. But following that first round success, PJ failed to post anything other than third place points. Back to back to back L's stacked up for the Piranha, but his one first place finish was enough to at least keep him in contention at the crag. So he did have a chance, although it was undoubtedly a long shot as his two competitors had been looking strong all day. Slammin' Sam Natoli
Slammin' Sam Natali!
and Kim Rockin' Red Tudor
It's Kim Rockin' Red Tudor!
had traded first place finishes back and forth for the entire episode. Sam earned top honors at both the basic training and Hang 10 events, and Kim had two first place finishes of her own as she matched PJ's score on Rebound and was the clear champion at the Tornado Run. When all was said and done, Kim had the edge by just 100 points, a near negligible difference as the available points skyrocketed at the Aggro Crag. It's a close race between all three, but one is about to separate from the pack in an explosive way. As the whistle blows and the players begin their climb, it looks as if though this might be a tight race. All three players make it through the crag's bottom section,
Boulder Canyon.
in a similar amount of time, but right here, in the middle of the mountain, is where everything changes. Without warning, Kim shifts into turbo. And breaks away from the other two. She builds up a decent lead before an avalanche of foam rocks comes barreling down the red section of the crag.
Kim is unfazed.
In the blink of an eye, she's already at the crag's peak and locks in a top-tier finish time of just 37 seconds. But what really makes this an Aggro Crag legend is just how long it took both other players to finish. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. These kids got dusted. Both Slammin' Sam and the Piranha had to do some backtracking after missing actuators, and at the final climb, well, the less said about that, the better. I mean, look at Kim during all of this. She's just up there chilling. Might as well take a seat and grab a magazine, cause Kim's got the crag peak looking like a waiting room right now. Sam and PJ locked in times of 105 and 119 respectively, making this the biggest margin of victory over both other players in the show's history. For her efforts, Kim earned the greatest prize ever seen on a game show, a piece of the Radical Rock itself. That's right. The prize for triumphing over the Aggro Crag was a glowing piece of the old girl herself. Could you imagine this bad boy sitting on top of your dresser next to your Little League trophies? Good God, what a flex. Nobody is ever calling you soft ever again. This thing is the polar opposite of a participation trophy. And what I said about this being the GOAT of game show prizes is 100% not up for discussion. Look, I don't make the rules. It's just a fact of life that this thing is worth more than any amount of money a game show could ever possibly give out. Oh, and you don't pay taxes on a piece of the Aggro Crag, do you? The manic hunt for one of these glowing pieces of glory persists to this very day. If you do any sort of Googling in the realm of Guts or the Aggro Crag, you are guaranteed to come across the question, can you buy a piece of the Aggro Crag? In short, yes, you can. Legitimate Crag trophies have been sold on eBay in the past for significant money. Going by one confirmed sale from 2011, a piece of the Aggro Crag would cost you more than $1,600 and your integrity/respect for the game. All I'm saying is, those who have not conquered the Crag should not handle the hardware. I got 3 words for Pat McAfee.
Earn it, pal.
Kim's win is impressive, but through no fault of her own, it's a little lacking, simply because it occurred on the much less exciting original Aggro Crag. So let's kick it up a notch and look at a run from the Mega Crag. As we switch from the original Crag to the Mega Crag, we find a story that's a lot more of a downer. I present to you the tragedy of Gary the Bullet Visser.
Gary the Bullet Visser shoot past them both in his quest to be the best.
Season 3, Episode 7 straight up belonged to the Bullet. He dominated the Extreme Arena from start to finish with 4 straight victories to start the show. Gary stacked up dubs in Slamma-Jamma, Extreme Baseball, Boogie Down, and Bullseye, giving him the highest point total possible going into the Crag. The perfect game was firmly in the Bullet's crosshairs, and there was extra motivation too, as a flawless performance on Guts would earn Gary both a piece of the Crag as well as the all-too-rare title of Guts All-Star. It was high stakes, but Gary had already risen up to the challenge of his rivals 4 times. A climb up the Crag is all that separated Gary from immortality. The run starts, and true to his nickname, Gary speeds into the lead. He makes short work of the obstacles, just as he had all day in the other events. He even breezes through the shard zone and finds himself way out in front as he approaches Stone Ledge. The Extreme Arena is on their feet. The whole place is going nuts, and the Bullet shoots up the climbing wall. Gary pulls himself to the top of Stone Ledge, and as he punches in an impressive final time of just 33 seconds, host Mike O'Malley makes the Bullet's legend status official.
Perfect game! He's an all-star!
But wait, I thought this was supposed to be a tragedy. Well, it is, because when the final placements came out, a shockwave was sent through the crowd as Gary was given 3rd place points after being disqualified. It turns out that Gary's easy passage through the shard zone was only made possible with the help of his section's guard railing.
Massive elite levels of fraudulence.
The rules of the Crag state that the railing cannot be touched at any time. In the blink of an eye, Gary's world had turned upside down.
You blew it! You had it all and you blew it!
It was the decision that rocked the kids' game show world. Gary's perfect game was officially no more. He had it all. A perfect performance, a dominant run up the Crag, the definitive 90s haircut, and then it was all taken right out from underneath him. Well, he still had the haircut, but he did lose the other stuff. Sure, he still did win the show, and he took home the world's most coveted trophy, but the dream of what could have possibly been probably still haunts Gary to this very day. Like I said, a tragedy. I brought you down to a sad place there, but now I'm gonna bring you back up with an uplifting story from Season 4, Episode 15. One about Stepan, a boy all the way from Ukraine who, against all the odds, was given a shot at the Super Aggro Crag. First, a little bit of context for the show's 4th season. As I've mentioned already, the 4th season was rebranded as Global Guts and was now billed as the Ultimate Kids Olympics. This is because this season featured contestants from not just the United States, but also other countries from across the world, including Mexico, the UK, Israel, Portugal, Spain, Germany, Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, and Kazakhstan. If we take a look at the first few events, it becomes clear that something is off because, well, Stepan isn't even here. Instead, there's a different contestant from Ukraine, Katya, aka the Asteroid.
Katya, the Asteroid!
For Katya, the first 2 events were a case of going from bad to worse. She got off to a rough start with a last place performance in Peak to Peak, but true disaster wouldn't strike until the Tornado Run in round 2. As the players come around the first turn of the Tornado Run, a collision occurs that sends the purple and red players to the ground. In all of this chaos, Katya also falls to the ground. It's a sprained ankle. Despite a gutsy, display finishing out the rest of the event, her Aggro Crag dream ended right here as production deemed her unable to continue due to the injury. This makes Katya the sole casualty of the Extreme Arena, and with Katya's exit, the hopes of Ukraine now turned to Stepan. Stepan was not messing around, and he made that clear by earning first place points in the next two events. And now, out of nowhere, he's standing at the foot of the Super Aggro Crag with the opportunity that every kid dreamed of. An opportunity that even just an hour ago seemed completely out of his reach. From the very beginning, this is a close race, with all three players getting off to strong starts. As is typical for an Aggro Crag run, everything happens extremely quickly, and the cameras don't always do the best job of catching all the action. But one thing we do see is the three players emerge from Avalanche Ledge at the same time. It all comes down to the ice wall, a three-way race and a nail-biting finish that sees Stepan claim victory with a last gasp effort. He just barely beats out his two competitors, and while he didn't take first overall due to Santiago, the player in red, coming in second, he earned himself a place in Aggro Crag history and a place in this video, which I'd say is a pretty nice consolation prize. There's no doubt about it, Stepan had guts, and his story of coming off the bench and seizing the day is perhaps one of the most memorable of the many legends that played out on the slopes of the Aggro Crag. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the like button. Also, if you're looking for more Nick Game Show content, I made a video ranking the teams from Legends of the Hidden Temple that you'd probably really like. I really appreciate all the support, and new videos are on the way. Until then, thanks again, and see you next time.